Welcome to the Pursuit of Learning podcast. I'm your host, Clint Murphy. My goal is for each of us to grow personally, professionally, and financially, one conversation at a time. To do that, we will have conversations with subject matter experts across a variety of modalities. My job as your host will be to dig out those golden nuggets of wisdom that will facilitate our growth. Join me on this pursuit. Some people tell you to bring your full self to work. Other people tell you not to. It can be confusing. In today's conversation with John Garrett, we talk about how bringing our full selves to work and encouraging our team to do the same is good for our career, our business, and for hiring and retaining top talent. Enjoy the show. John, welcome to the Pursuit of Learning. Where I'd love to start is a two-part question to get us going. One, what's motivating you in life right now? And then, what do you want to ensure that we get across to the listeners in today's conversation?
Oh, wow. So that'll be the next hour right there, answering those two questions. No, I appreciate you having me on, Clint. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I mean, what's motivating me is probably just making sure that workplaces recognize that they have humans there. It sounds so simple, but it's not easy. And so I think that that's really what motivates me. And then I already forget the second half of the question. So like it's...
One or two things that you want to make sure we get across in our convo.
Right. We're going to have to go one step at a time here, Clint. No, but it's, yeah, I mean, I think it's just that people understand that there's other dimensions to who they are as people. And then also the people around them in the workplace settings. You know, there's hobbies and passions and interests and family and faith and all these other things that make us a person. And it's so easy in the workplace settings for us to just get focused on the technical skills, and that's what my job is. So I, just looking at things more holistically.
All right. So we're going to be helping people understand that by talking about your book, What's Your And? So why don't we start with the idea of, let's define what is your and that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, the and is a noun. So for instance, it's your outside of work hobbies and passions and interests. So you're an accountant and like to binge watch Netflix. You're an attorney and like to ballroom dance. You're an engineer and like to volunteer at the dog shelter. No one really cares about the first part, the job title part of you, but those humans parts of you is where there's follow-up questions and it's more interesting. So the and is just refers to what other dimensions to your life are you beyond the job title? Because basically, if you think about it, there's a job title, but behind the job title is a human being. And for so many of us, we don't see ourselves as that, or even worse, when we look at other people, we only see them as job titles and not as human beings. And, step behind that job title just a little bit.
And one of the things that often comes up, and this is a bit reminiscent of the concept that we're hearing more about now with bring your whole self to work versus part of yourself. And one of the challenges is managers and leaders who look at bringing your whole self as it's not professional.
Right.
Talk me through that.
Well, the definition of professionalism cracks me up. I mean, it's in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and it's something along the lines of or pertaining to a profession or a professional person. And I don't know where you went to sixth grade, Clint, but I wasn't allowed to use the word to define the word. And the dictionary did it two times in the same definition. And but I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, it's so vague. And what was professional 100 years ago is completely ludicrous today. And so it's really just looking at, if you're inhibiting your ability to do your job or someone else's ability to do their job, then okay, that's unprofessional. But otherwise, I mean, I feel like it's grossly negligent to ignore the fact that you have human beings that work around you that have other, hobbies and passions and interests and other things that are sometimes more important than work. And if you don't acknowledge that, especially in this climate, then people are gone, and good for them. They should be. Go somewhere that values you as a person, not just values you for the contribution to the organization.
And so thinking about what you said right there, when you said, if you don't do that, the people are gone.
Yeah.
Right? We're at a point with the Great Resignation, with super low unemployment, that people are having a challenge hiring and retaining good people. So how can you and I as leaders, or other people as leaders, how can we use the and to our advantage in keeping good people on our teams, John?
Sure. Several ways. One is just acknowledging the fact that people work so they can make money, so they can go do cool stuff. So if we find out what the cool stuff is and you tap into that, then they are more excited about staying. So if you're able to because if you think about it, when you talk about work, sometimes it brings you joy, but sometimes it doesn't. But when you talk about your like when I talk about college football or going to concerts or eating ice cream, it's always awesome. Always. Because it always brings me joy. And so if you're able to use that enthusiasm and that energy and bring some emotion into the workplace by having people share those ands and create stronger connections between those, then they'll stay. They'll be more engaged with each other. They'll be more engaged with the work. And you'll show that you care about them as a full person and not just you care about the work part. And good luck trying to find another organization or another leader that loves you more than I do. Because if you go interview someone else, go for it. Ask them if your manager knows about your and asks about your and cares about your and they'll be like, what are you even talking about? And then go work there. I mean, they don't care about you like as a person. And so that's one way. But another way is that there's expertise that people have from their ands, that it's an untapped gold mine that organizations are sitting on that they don't even there was an organization that before I was working with them, they had a big presentation to give, and it came down to two women. One is the lead singer of a cover band, and the other one loves 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles. Well, who should be giving the presentation? The lead singer of the cover band. Easy. But they didn't pick her. They went with who's been here longest, which is the dumbest reason for anything in corporate. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. And so they went with the puzzle lady, who was very anxious and didn't do well. Meanwhile, the lead singer of the cover band's kind of bitter that she didn't get chosen because that would be her element. I mean, she's like, I've been exercising this muscle outside of work for years. Let me finally use it at work, type of thing. And it goes with that. It goes with client relationships. It goes with coworker relationships. I mean, it crosses so many boundaries that it's really awesome to see.
So there's so much to play with there, John. And I want to focus on the negative for a bit, right? So, often when you have an and that can be in the public, like let's say you were a comedian, I do a podcast, and all of a sudden you have your boss saying, hey, that's not professional, right? What are you doing on the side? Now, there's two schools of thought I want to tackle there, because I want to focus on both the negative and understand why do people think that way, and the positive of, I would imagine you would have been great with clients, at ease, putting them in comfort. With me doing this, hey, if we have an all-colleague meeting, I'm probably comfortable getting up and doing a fireside chat, right? Why do leaders focus on the negative side of the and instead of the positive?
I think it's harder to manage because now you have a bunch of individuals instead of you can't hammer them all flat. So I think it's harder to manage. Also, I think it's just lazy. It's just lazy. They didn't grow up that way, if you will, in corporate. So my manager never cared about me. Why should I care about you? Well, actually, that's the exact reason why. Well, we didn't have it this way. Well, then make it the way you wanted it to be. It's your turn to make it better. Don't make it suck worse for everyone else. And so I feel like there's also a little bit of jealousy that they don't have an and, because they've put all their identity into their work. And so they don't have something outside of work. So God forbid if you waste, quote unquote, any time doing something besides more work. and our ego gets involved, even in our own heads of, why are you doing something besides more work with this free time? And it's just all lies we tell ourselves. And it's like people model behavior of what they think success looks like when they started, only to find out that those people are modeling behavior of someone else who's modeling behavior of someone. Like no one's actually being themselves. And it's sad. And so I'm here to stop the merry-go-round and be like, why are we doing this? Like, why is this thing going around like this? Why don't we just see each other for who we actually are and appreciate that? And so I think it's a combination of a couple of things. It's laziness and it's just not having an and themselves. So they think that, no one has something outside of work because they don't. And it's like, well, just because you didn't ask the people around you if they do, then that doesn't mean they don't. Because my research actually shows 92% have hobbies or passions they regularly do outside of work. So that means that the stereotypical professional is you and me, Clint, and people that have hobbies and people that have been on my podcast have hobbies and passions outside of work. 92%. It's not even close. It's not like 51-49. Well, no, 92-8. Like, get out. Like, it's not even, the auditor in me wants to round up to 100. Immaterial difference. It's...
Yeah, well, I'm also a former auditor, so I'm with you.
There you go. We're done.
And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that time at the firm just teaches you, I need something else. I cannot just do this. So let's flip that, right? You're developing these skills as a comedian while you're working as an accountant. I'm developing skills, writing books, writing online, podcasting while I'm at work. Now, you and I are looking at that and saying, well, hey, we could probably tap into that if we were our bosses. How do you work with someone to get them to see that, to get them to flip the script and say, wait, I'm going to stop saying you shouldn't have the and I'm going to start saying, let's take advantage of it. How do you make that shift?
I mean, not all the ands can directly correlate to a skill, but at the very least, it humanizes you and it creates a connection point between you and other humans. So at the very least, it's that. So it's good no matter what. But there are some skills that almost all of them that people get from their ands that you can definitely use. And I feel like leaders, even if you're just a manager of a 3-person team, you're still a leadership position. And it's just asking people, hey, like when you're not at work, where would I find you? Like, what do you enjoy doing besides law, accounting, engineering, architecture, whatever? And for instance, I like to, and then if you share, then it's almost the reciprocity has to happen or the universe is out of balance. And so people, well, I like this. And then it's listen and then have 1 or 2 follow-up questions, which means that you're actually listening to what they're telling you. And then remember it. And then 6 months later or 3 months later or 1 month later, when they have an event or a thing that they went to, ask them about it. Like, hey, you were going to that concert. How was it? If they're running a 5K or a half marathon or whatever it is, I'm not running it, but I can come cheer you on or, ask you how it went. I mean, if you're someone that works, and this gets down to the difference between a manager and a leader, of one you have to follow and the other one you want to follow. And be the one that people want to follow, and not only that, but it creates other strings of connection, if you will. So when critical feedback's necessary, it's really not so critical because now you're pulling your friend aside and saying, hey, Clint, I know you can do better. But I remember when on one project I was on, the manager, he only talked to me 3 times and all 3 times were to tell me how stupid I was because I messed up some small thing. And it's like, well, guess who's never going to be on your projects again because I hate your gut. I don't want to ever be around you. And and I'm sure it's mutual, but it's like, this is terrible. Like the only time you talk to me is to tell me when I did something wrong, not the one thing that I did right. No, let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about, okay. Who wants to be around that? Nobody, even that person doesn't want to be around that.
So a few key things that are jumping out of that. One, we'll dive into relationships second. But the first one, and you've mentioned it a few times, And that's this concept that you're demonstrating that you care, right? So it's not superficially asking what's your and. We have to be invested in the process. So what does that investment look like? Let's say I'm a leader and I'm not doing this right now, and I show up Monday for my one-to-one with my team. What does it look like if I'm invested and I'm actually caring over a series of meetings over 3, 6, 9 months?
Yeah. I mean, it's having a genuine interest in the people around you. So it's finding out that somebody likes to write, and it's like, oh, I'd love to read some of your writing sometime. Or it's, how's the writing going? Or, just asking questions about it, just being curious about the things that light other people up. And then watch when you ask people about their and how much they come alive. I mean, their eyes get bigger, the tone of voice, they're more animated, and they're excited to talk about that thing. And have 1 or 2 follow-up questions, and then remember it. And then, if it's a concert that they like to go to, when's the next concert you have planned? Oh, well, it's going to be, in 3 months. Okay, well, maybe put it on your calendar. And then, the Monday after that weekend, come in and be like, hey, you were going to that concert, right? Like, how was it? What? You remembered? That's amazing, sort of a thing. And, just, it's literally just have a genuine interest in the people around you. And I understand that there isn't a charge code for getting to know each other, or we don't get paid to socialize, or all the things that I've heard in my research, but we do actually get paid to get to know each other, because that's how business works, because it's a human to human transaction. It's not B2C or B2B, it's H to H, I guess,
Well, 100%. I mean, you and I were both at Big Four accounting firms. And when you're a staff and you look at the senior managers who become partners, the ones that you want it to work for, they might not have been the technically strongest, but they were the ones that invested the most time getting to know people, right? And sure, you realized a bit later that they did it because they liked to, but also they knew how the game worked. If I invest my effort, my charge code of getting to know these young people, then I can get the best ones to work on my job because we're friends. And now my jobs will go smoother than Ted down the hall, who's only focused on technical, and no one wants to work for Ted. Technical Ted. No one wants to work for that guy.
Yeah. But I mean, and it goes in line. There was a study that was done at Carnegie Institute, found that your financial success, i.e. your career success, was based 15% on technical skills. 15%. 85% on human engineering, interpersonal skills, essential skills, as I like to call them. And 15% technical skills. What was your education, Clint? Technical skills. Let me guess. CPE, technical skills. Continuing education, technical skills. What did you pride yourself on? Your technical skills. What did you judge other people on? Technical skills. What were you promoted on? Technical skills. What did you get a bonus on? Technical skills. Technical skills. 15% of your career success. And you know what's even more shocking? That study was done in 1918, over 100 years ago.
Yeah, and it's only gotten more and more.
And it's gotten worse. It's like humans cannot help but run the ship aground. It's just like, what is going on? Like, how did we know about this over 100 years ago? And yet all of my education and work and everything, all of your education and your work, all the people listening, I'm sure it's been, it's how do we deal with humans is not taught at all, anywhere in any of it. It's just like you're promoted and then go figure it out. That doesn't work, and some organizations are doing a great job of helping people to get those skills before they become the manager. But it's wild, it's just wild that over 100 years ago, we knew that, sure, be technically sound, be good at your job. But now, especially, there's computers. I mean, like, what?
Yeah, the computers do the technical, but they can't replace that human element that, unfortunately, a lot of people are lacking.
Oh, yeah. The empathy and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems that the only way unless you work for an organization where they're training it, but I agree with you, probably 80% aren't. So the only way you tend to learn that stuff is when you decide, I'm going to learn this of my own volition, right? I'm going to go read books and I'm going to take courses and I'm going to study at night because I want to be a better people person because I can see that the people in front of me or beside me, they're not doing it right. I need to figure this out. And so how do you get young people to realize that so that as they move forward in their career, they're making the right decisions, John?
Well, I think the young people now recognize that being all work all the time isn't healthy, and it's not what they want. And they've reached a critical mass now where they actually have a voice. And because of the internet, I mean, the generation before us, they just, shut your mouth, be lucky you're getting a paycheck. And, our generation was sort of like, I don't know about some of this, but we don't really have many options. And then that's like kind of that Gen X. And then the millennials came along and they're like, whoa, time out. There's the internet now. Like we can literally find jobs everywhere. We can make our own job. And then the Gen Zs now are like, forget it all. We'll just quit tomorrow. I mean, it went from be lucky you're getting a paycheck to now bosses being like lucky that they came back from lunch. We're like, oh, you're back. Thank God. It's like a puppy every day, like just excited that you're back,
And it's scary how true that is. Now, do you think so part of that's just we've been on an incredible bull run. You look back to '08 and things weren't great. And people kind of hunkered down because they're like, holy crow.
Yeah.
Especially in the US, the Great Recession, right? And people lost their jobs, foreclosures, and all of a sudden people buckled down. And then we go on a 14-year bull run. Economy is just, 20% a year, every year for the S&P. And people are like, oh, this is easy. Like I can get a job anywhere. I can do anything. All my investments just go up and up and up. Life's easy. And now we have the inflation, interest rates are going up. All of a sudden, things are looking a little shaky. Your investment returns just plummeted 20, 30%. And people are saying, hey, a recession may be around the corner. Does that temper this a little? Does that put us back where all of a sudden a lot of people, John, instead of being like, I'm not coming back after lunch, will be like, shoot, I'm going to buckle down because the job, like the pendulum has swung back the other way.
I feel like it'll balance out at some point. I mean, people shouldn't just quit like that. I mean, that's unprofessional. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that at all. That doesn't mean that it's not happening, but you shouldn't be doing that because karma comes back and it'll kick you really hard. And so, that being said, I do think that people should find a place that values them and work there. And organizations, especially in professional services space, have standing open positions. I mean, that's what's so crazy to me is AI was supposedly coming for our jobs. And yet the more AI we have, the more human we need. And so there's computers and AI and tech everywhere. And yet there's massive shortage of talent. And part of that's from people retiring and that generation having so many more people than the younger generation. Also, that generation worked a stupid number of hours because that was their whole life. And so to have a new person come in, you're not going to work, 12-hour days plus, every day, 6 days a week or whatever these people, that retired were doing. And so I do feel like people should go somewhere that values them, though. And there are organizations that do. And if you're at one that doesn't and you're in a leadership position, then start. I mean, it's really that simple because there are other organizations that do care about it. And even a lot of the ESG stuff and the SEC is going to require some human capital management reporting soon for publicly traded companies. And so this stuff matters. People care about this stuff. It's not just, oh, it's the millennials or the whatevers, which by the way are almost 40. So they're not kids anymore. They have kids. It's
exactly. It's not we still say it that way. We're talking about kids coming out of high school and I'm like, I'm quasi a millennial and I'm 43. I'm that generation that's right between the two. I think they call us Zennials or something.
Right. There you go.
So yeah, I totally agree with you. And so the other half that we talked about we'll go back to it was you've talked about relationships a few times. And one of the things that I loved that you pointed out was that there's sort of a magic number of friends we want to have at work to make us sticky, right? And I tend to always use that concept because we want to be a sticky workplace where people love it, don't want to leave. So what is that magic number? And how do we use our and? Because we've talked about getting at other people's ands, but how do we also use our and to create those connections and relationships, whether it's as colleagues or whether it's as a leader where we build that trust and openness with people?
Yeah, totally. And there you go with your multi-part questions again, and I'll have to try to remember it after I get going. No, but like, I think that the magic number, I rely on Tom Rath wrote the Strength Finder series, but he also wrote a book called Vital Friends. And in that research that he did, he found that people who have 3 close friends at work are more satisfied with their life. It's like 96% of people with 3 close friends at work. So, 3 close friends are more satisfied with your life. It's not, if you have 3 close friends at work, you're more satisfied with your job. This spills over into your life. Like that's how much, you're around these people more waking hours than your family and your quote unquote friends. So why would you not create friendly relationships with them? It's crazy to me, and so if you have 3 close friends at work, you're more satisfied with your life. Period. And so how do you get 3 close friends at work? Do you get it by, yelling at them that they did a macro wrong in Excel or that they, whatever? Like, no, you don't. Like, no one, do you get it by memorizing the tax code or being like super technical genius wizard that talks about work all the time? Like, nobody wants to be around that person ever. And so stop, and so ask people who they are as a person. Get behind the job title to the human. And you want to go deeper, like inside that human's a soul. Like what lights the soul up? The answer is not more accounting. That does not light your soul up. There might be one person listening, but there's 99 billion of us that are not. And so I'm good at my job and I like my job, but what lights my soul up is something else that's deeper and richer. And so finding out what people like to do outside of work and who they are as a human, that allows you to create the connection. Now, I did stand up. I never met another person that did stand up while I was working, in the corporate world, but everyone knew about it. And as a matter of fact, the way this all started is I was speaking at a conference and about 900 people. I'm backstage getting mic'd up. Meeting professional comes up. Hey, do you know this guy named Mark? And I'll leave his last name off in case he listens. And I was like, no, I've never heard that name in my life. And she goes, well, he knows you. He saw all the speakers and says, I know John Garrett. That's the guy who did Comedy at Night. And I'm like, who's this Rain Man? Do I owe him $50? Like, what's going on? And so then I get off stage. I look on my LinkedIn. He was in my first Big Four office 12 years before that. And he was in the tax department. And I'm one of the cool CPAs that doesn't know how taxes work. So I never met Mark. You too, Clint. See? So I never met Mark. I don't know what Mark looks like outside of the little circle on LinkedIn. And I never went to that floor. I don't know how tall Mark is or short Mark is. Like I have no clue. But 12 years later, he remembered me. And he didn't remember me for being hand selected to be on the largest financial services client that the firm had. He didn't remember me for being one of the first promoted in my start class. He didn't remember me for passing the CPA exam. He didn't remember me for working 3,894 hours that year, billable, whatever. He remembered me because of a hobby I did outside of work 12 years later. And I think we all deserve to be remembered 12 years from now.
Well, that's one of the key things, right? Is your hobby and what you're doing outside of your work sticks into someone's brain more than what you're doing in your job because they're doing that job too. So to them, there's nothing special to it.
It's your differentiator.
Exactly.
Yeah, you go to like a business networking event and it's like, hi, my name's John and I'm a CPA and I work for this firm. Oh, whoop-de-freaking-do, so does everyone else. And I do comedy. Wait, what? Like now there's follow-up questions. Now there's, wait, tell me about, and it's funny because I travel quite a bit speaking at conferences and consulting with organizations. So when I get on an airplane, I don't like to talk to the person next to me because odds are they're going to say something annoying and I can't get up and leave. So, because we're in the air. And so I'm sitting there. And so when people sit next to me and I say, when they sit down, they go, oh, so what do you do? And so I used to say, I was a comedian and now I'm a speaker. And then they go, oh, let me tell you who my favorite comedian is. And I say, let me guess, not John Garrett. And they're like, you're right, never heard of him. And then they go on and on and on about somebody else. And it's like, ah. And so now when they sit down next to me and they go, what do you do? I say, I'm an accountant. And they put on their noise canceling headphones. I mean, there's not even a follow-up question. They don't even ask. And then I look down and their backpack has a logo of a firm on it. And it's like, you're one too. Like, what? But nobody cares. Nobody cares. There's no norepinephrine going on in your brain because you're interested in interesting things. That's not released when you meet someone that has a job. Oh, so you're an adult with a job? Awesome. Welcome to the table. It doesn't matter.
Can we talk about accrual accounting? Do you want to?
Nope, I'm all cost accounting. That's what I
all cost all the time. It's just there's just nothing enjoyable about that. Now, I have met at least one person in my life who I was just blown away by how much they loved audit. And I was like, this guy should be a partner.
Absolutely.
This is scary how much he loves what he does.
Maybe should be a partner, but maybe not, because now you're in charge of people that don't think audit is the number one thing. And so I'm good at audit, but is it so one person that I had on my podcast, Mark Winburn, he does IT control audits, and he's an amazing singer, like Michael Bublé, Frank Sinatra, he's so good. And he said singing for him is breathing in happy. And I'm like, how rich is that? Breathing in happy. People listening now, what's your breathing in happy? And what's your people's around you? What's their breathing in happy? And are you giving them time to go breathe in happy? I mean, so I said to him, well, what about IT audits? He's like, nah, not so much. I mean, I'm good at them and I like them and I like the firm that I work with, but breathing in happy is a next level kind of a thing. That's what lights up your soul kind of a thing. And that stuff matters. And for so long, we've just ignored that stuff and put it on the back burner. Then it goes dormant. And then at some point it goes extinct. And you meet those people that are older and they're like, well, I don't even remember what I like to do. And you're like, really? Wow. Okay. Well, we got some work to do. Let's talk.
That's a sad spot to get to.
It's so common. So common.
And one of the things that you hinted at there was you said you were talking about how you were remembered for your comedy.
Yeah.
And you said because that's what differentiates you. And when we're looking at applying for a job or we're looking at getting promoted, some people say, hey, don't put your hobbies on your resume. And your point is, Seth Godin, Purple Cow, you're like, no, put that on your resume because that is what sets you apart. Can you unpack that one for us, John? Because I felt like
Purple Cow, absolutely brilliant book. If you're not standing out, then you're completely invisible. And it's so true. It's so true. That's the quote from Purple Cow right there is Seth Godin. And so it's so true. And I lived it. So my resume is hilarious because I bought into all these lies that professionalism tells us. And so when I sent my resume in, I was like, well, I'm the best. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame, which is a top 5 accounting program every year. You had Big Four public accounting. I had industry. I had startup experience. I had all kinds of, strong resume. So when I sent it in, I was literally like, I don't know why you're interviewing anyone else. Let's just do this. How about I interview? We go to lunch and then I'll start right after. Done. And so, but then when I look at my resume, 90% of the paper is the same as everyone else. So you have a college degree, you have CPA after your name, and you have work experience. You have the exact same thing, Clint. What makes you and me different? Now, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so then at the bottom of my resume, and literally only because there was space is why I put this down here. But I had community, and I said Big Brothers, Big Sisters that I volunteered with. And then under that, professional stand-up comedian. Every single interview I went on was about 5 minutes on all the crap that I thought was so important. School and work experience. And then we spent about a half hour on those last 2 lines that I accidentally put on only because there was space. Comedy, what's that all about? Tell me about this. What? You worked with Louis Anderson? What? All these questions. Big Brothers, Big Sisters. How long have you been doing that? What made you get started? all those things. And that's what you do when you interview people now. You're just looking for, well, someone please stand out. And you're not going to stand out with your work experience and your education. You're just not. I mean, you're another person that does now have the work experience, have the education, have the technical skills. Absolutely. I'm not disregarding it. I'm just saying that just gets you in the door. But then to stand out and not be invisible, as Seth Godin would say, then you have to stand out. And it doesn't have to be super odd or super random, but it just, who are you? I'm going to be around you all these hours. Like, who are you? Like, that's what matters.
So an interesting one for you on that, because I think the same way when I'm interviewing people, right? Because by the time they get to me in the process, they've been through 3 or 4 rounds. Like, I'm not interviewing you to understand whether you're technically proficient. I'm hoping my team did. I'm interviewing you to see if you should be on our team as a person. And so it's quite interesting because it almost goes to your and people not having it. Because my first question is generally, hey, we've got your resume. We've already seen it. Tell me your story. Like start to where you are now. I want it all. And don't regurgitate what's on that paper. Like, just let me know who you are. And so often the answer you get back is, well, I went to college here and then I graduated and I started working here. And you're like, oh my God.
You're doing what's on the paper. Like, no, like,
yeah. Like, is there anything else to you? Like, or are you, because you're almost, are they broadcasting that? And hopefully they're not, but are they almost broadcasting that they're one-dimensional?
Right. It's because the lies we tell ourselves of this is my way to impress Clint or impress this organization is to tell them about, the things that I think they think. It's what I think you think is important. But in actuality, none of it's true. Like, it's just not. I mean, yes, I have work experience. Yes, I'm good at what I do. But the more, like, when I meet somebody, I just assume you're good at your job. Like, I don't know where you work, Clint, but I'm sure you're good at your job. The more you tell me about how you're good at your job, and everyone listening who works with Clint, seriously, he's amazing. I'm just trying to help you out here. But like it's, but the more that you would then tell me how good you are at your job, now I'm going to start to believe you less, actually. And because now I believe you're trying to like hype yourself up now to yourself. And, I don't actually believe that you're good at your job now, the more you talk about it. And so, I think that people are scared to be the human behind the job title. And they're also maybe a little bit not aware of the human behind the job title. Like they forget who they are, or they don't know who they are, or who else they are, I guess is really how I should phrase it.
Or even, take it a step further, like we talked about earlier, they still haven't worked somewhere where someone actually encouraged them to go behind the veil. So they hear a guy who's in the boss seat and they're like, oh, he can't actually mean he wants to know me as a human. Like he just wants to know whether I can write a macro and sum if and do a pivot table. And I'm like,
oh, now you're talking my talk.
If you can't do that stuff, why are you here?
Right? Also, I can teach you that in about an hour. So
yeah, exactly.
But your personality, I can't work on. Like that's fixed. So, like it's.
And I think I could teach them. My team nowadays doesn't let me anywhere near spreadsheets because they don't think I actually know how to do any of it.
It's probably because you call it Lotus 1, 2, 3, Clint. That's probably why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was doing their job, but they're like, no, you'll just break everything. It's like, sure, okay. I'll just tell you what to do then and go read the New York Times. So we're encouraging people to share. We're encouraging people to get behind the veil. When does it flip from sharing to drama? And what's the difference and how do we avoid that?
Yeah, well, it's got to be something that truly lights you up. So, what is it that lights up your soul, like lights you up, that is a part of who you are? And at the same time, isn't distracting for you or someone else's ability to get their work done. Because at the end of the day, we work somewhere so we can get our work done. I mean, that's why you're getting paid, is to get the work done. So that has to happen. So if you're causing turmoil or distraction or what have you, because you broke up with the 7th guy this week and blah, whatever, showing up hammered and, to work. And it's like, well, this is authentic me. And it's like, but it's not. That's not authentic you. Like, that's not the best you. Come on. Like, you're better than that. And so, it's really just realizing, like, what is it that really lights you up? And especially, sadly, these days, if it's religious or political, that's going to distract people. So not those things, maybe lead with something else, because I have to believe that there isn't just one thing that you're all in on. There's a couple of things that you're excited about, and they don't have to be activities. They can be reading, they can be watching Netflix, they can be, they can be stationary things. They don't have to be activities per se. Or for me, ice cream is definitely one of them. And that counts. And I'll fight anybody on that if they don't think it's an and, because I'm very passionate about it.
So what's your favorite flavor?
Oh, chocolate chip cookie dough, hands down.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Yeah. I need stuff with like chunks, like brownie chunk, whatever. Like I want to get, I want to be able to chew it a little bit and like maximize the calories per spoon going into my face. Like I'm definitely all into the efficiency of that. Yeah. So
it sounds delicious. We've got a couple good ones out here. I rotate between two. Sour cherry goat cheese is just absolutely.
Oh, wow. I never even heard of that.
That's delicious. Highly recommend. So let's flip it to, there's a line you quote and it really struck me. So I'll share your line and I'll tell you a little story and then let you really unpack this one, because I think it's very important for people to understand. And what your line was, employees shouldn't go home exhausted after playing a part all day. And so the story, rewind about 6-7 years, I was training to be the CFO where I'm at. And my boss, he picked up that I had, certain quirks, and he was going to train those quirks out of me, right? And so, if I had a beard, I might play with it. And, it's partially ADHD driven, and it's my fidgeting, right? And he's like, well, you can't fidget, because if you're going to be a CFO, you have to be like straight. Like you got to be on point. And one thing he appreciated was he was like, hey, anytime I give you advice, you just do it. And I'm like, yeah, well, I want the job. Like you tell me to do it, I'll do it. And like a month later, he goes, you're doing really well at this stuff. How do you feel about it? And I looked at him and I said, I have never been more tired in my life, because every day I'm spending so much mental bandwidth just masking Clint. Like I'm trying to not be me. And that mask is so mentally taxing. And I think, so when I read that line, I was like, I almost teared up on it. I was like, oh, that was a rough month. And I remember going for a walk with the president who I would eventually report to. And he was like, we all have quirks. Like if those are your quirks, those are your quirks. Just like, don't spend all your...
I'm not even telling you my quirks, Clint, because that's like yours. No, I'm just kidding, man. No, but thank you, man. That means so much, because I mean, it's exhausting. It really is, because you're masking and you're spending all this, like you said, the bandwidth on what am I supposed to do? What am I not supposed to do? And all this person's trying to do is make Clint into a watered down version of them. And it's like, no. Your organization needs Clint, not a watered down version of somebody else. Like we already have that guy or that woman. Like we need Clint. That's who we need. And so bring it, and the people listening, bring you. Like, make it weird, make it you, like, and you don't have to act a certain way because you're the CFO. Like you're the CFO, be you. Like they promoted you to this job, the senior associate, whatever your role is. Like you don't have to act a certain way all of a sudden. Like they promoted you because they think you can do that job. And I remember somebody I talked with in Australia, and she's a print model as well as a chemical engineer that goes out to like oil rigs where there's like dudes that haven't seen people for months. And so she was really trying to keep it separate. because she didn't want people to think, oh, a model isn't smart or doesn't know what they're doing, or these lies that we tell ourselves. And then she would tell some people, but not others. And then she forgot who she told and didn't tell. And so then it just got exhausting. And so then finally it just came out and everyone thought it was awesome. Like nobody thought it was bad. And so the thing is we're always so worried about what other people are going to think about us. And we're our worst critics. And it's like whoever thinks it's bad, well, good for them because they're not the right people. And if it's a place where you work and it's your boss, well, then, then that's crazy. I mean, like, why would you not? Like, I do a good job. Like, as long as it's not illegal and not taboo, then who cares? It's all good.
And there are some things you probably don't want to bring to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But within reason.
I'm a cocaine dealer on the side, and well, let's not go with that one. It's.
Yeah.
But no wonder he's so fidgety. No, but but just like, just like little things that, just to humanize, because I see people that don't have ands and they always want to go to the extreme. Well, what if, something ridiculous? And I'm like, okay, well, that's never happened ever. And so like, it's not a thing. I mean, of course you can make up that scenario in your head, but it's not going to happen. And it's not that way. And, and it really matters that you're not exhausted. And I believe that work should be not just extraction. It should be a net positive for the employees. Like, okay, yeah, we're paying you, but that doesn't mean we get to suck your soul out. It's like, no, there should still be some net positive there for everyone involved. So you're getting the work output from them, but they're also getting, paid, but as well as like enrich their lives of everyone around them. And so, I think that work should be a net positive and not just extraction. I think that's important.
Oh, I feel like I want to spend more time on this one because
I should have said this at the beginning. My bad.
No, it's such a beauty, right? Because how many people do you see who talk about their job with a smile on their face where they're like, that's what I get to go do from 8 a.m. till 5, right? Like I get to kick ass and take names and hang out with cool people and I enjoy it. And it seems like it shouldn't take much to get us there, John.
Yeah, it's not the work itself. It's talking about your outside of work things. That's where the culture of your organization starts, is outside of the office. It's not what happens inside the office. Nothing exciting. Hey, how many times have you rushed home to tell your partner or your spouse, like, oh man, you'll never believe what happened today in the office. It was amazing. Holy God. No, that's never happened. But how many times have you come in on a Monday? Dude, you'll never guess what we did over the weekend. Like every Monday, in your 20s, And so it's just like, that's where cool stuff happens. And so if we can take that energy and that emotion and that enthusiasm up from outside of work and bring it into the office, now there's some emotion and some energy and some enthusiasm inside the office. And it's not for the work specifically, but it's take that inertia that we've now wound up and, okay, now go down the mountain, roll, like, let's do this, type of thing. And so it's really important that people have these hands and share them.
And one of the things that you talk about with our ands is that when we have those interests outside of work, we're less likely to be anxious or depressed. Can you talk through that and we can dive into maybe why we think that plays out the way it does?
Yeah, there was a study that was done at Duke University. And it was people that have more dimensions to their lives are less prone to anxiety and depression, which makes sense. I mean, if you're all work all the time, and let's say you're up for a promotion and your whole identity is your job. Well, waiting to hear if you got promoted or not, anxiety is going to be through the roof. You're pins and needles waiting to hear. And then it comes back not in your favor. Well, that is a 100% punch to the face because that's your whole identity. And now, wham, slammed. Just done. But if you really think about your life and your work, what is it? Maybe 15% of who you are? You have outside of work hobbies, you have other passions, you have family, you have faith, you have friends, you have other things that you do outside of work. So if you really think about it and put it on paper, who you are is maybe 15% CFO. But we allow it to become 100% of who we are is CFO. And so if you keep these other dimensions to who you are, then yeah, sure, I didn't get that promotion. It stings a little bit, but I have other sources of confidence and other sources of identity and other sources of joy that I have. So I can turn to those and be like, you know what, that hurts 15%, but I've got, 80, 85% over here that feels great. So life's good. It's fine. I'll get over it, and so, you just get out of that tailspin and it makes you a better professional. Less anxiety, less depression makes you better at your job. And so having these other dimensions to your life makes you a better professional. And so that goes counter to all the old school thought of all work all the time. It's not true.
And so there's almost two elements to that there, because I heard two different things. One of them is perception, right? So if I sit back and look at it and say, oh, well, I have family, I have podcasts, I have my writing, I have my friends, So work is only a small part of who I am. The other is I actually have to have those things, right? So many of us, we either don't perceive things properly, so our thinking's flawed, or we haven't invested in anything but the work.
And it's a false idol because it's never enough. It's never enough. So, you get the raise, well, that's not enough money. You get the title, well, that's not enough. You get, whatever it is, that's not enough. You get the nice car, well, I need two of them. There's never an end. The race never ends. And so it's a false idol that you're worshiping. That's dangerous because it doesn't have your best interest at heart, period, as a human or as a soul. It doesn't want you to have that. It wants you to stay out here on the surface of job title and not go behind that. And it's scary because so many people fall prey to it, and it's a slippery slope. Before you know it, all of a sudden you're like, I spoke at a pretty huge software conference, and the vice president of North America came up after, and she goes, wow, you really got me thinking. Like, I used to love to run, like marathons, like real running. And she's like, I don't remember the last time I went running. And I was like, well, let's do it now. You don't even need a team or a uniform. Like, kick your heels off. I'll chase you. Like, what do you need? Like, but the thing that lights her soul up, she hasn't done.
She just gave it up.
Yeah, she hasn't done. She can't remember the last time she even jogged around the block. And you're like, wow, that's how easy it is for professionalism and, to just get its grips on you and not let you go. It's scary.
It's so interesting how you phrased that there. When you are so absorbed in your title and you're so absorbed in your role, then it's never enough. So you get the raise, it's not enough. You get the promotion, it's not enough. And when you let go of that and you're zoned in on your you get the raise and you're like, oh yeah, thanks, that's great. Like, that's awesome. Really appreciate it. You don't get the raise, you're like, oh, well, next year, right? But like, you still have your boundaries.
It'll sting a little bit, but it's not going to throw you into its tailspin where, you're just like, not coming out of bed for a week or what have you.
Because you're putting it in perspective as a small component. Like, you're not attached to it anymore. Is that almost a way to look at it?
You're less attached. Yeah. And your identity is so much bigger than your job. And, for so many people, we let our job title and our job ourselves, the work itself, identify us. And it's a badge of honor. Well, I worked, 60 hours last week. Why? Like, are you not good at your job? Like, why? What took you so long? Like, why are you like, why did you work so long? Like, on purpose? Like, what? Like, this isn't North Korea. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have to. Like, why? And so, but it's a badge of honor. And like, it's ludicrous, that's a thing. And it's like, yes, there are times where we have to hunker down. Yes, there's month ends or year ends where, okay, we got to put this in, or, there's a big project. Okay, cool. But then there's also other times where I have other things that sometimes are more important than work. And that's okay, and take care of yourself.
Well, and when you don't, imagine that VP that you're talking to, you get so bogged down in work and you fast forward 30 years and you're retiring. And so many people, they retire and within 2 years they die because they have nothing to live for.
Yeah, or they don't retire at all. So it's like, get out of here. Well, I don't know what to go jump to. Yeah.
Yeah, like what am I going to do? Like all I know is work. So how does our and help solve that, John?
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps prepare you for retirement. So then you can have that thing to jump to. You can have that thing to look forward to as well, and it's things to occupy your time and give you a reason to get out of bed and things that bring you joy. And, if you feel like your whole identity is one thing and then that thing gets taken away, well, then who am I anymore? And so it's asking you now, who else are you? So you have these other identities or a bigger identity, if you will, than just work. So that then when it comes time to transition away, also this works with parents that are, the feedback on the book is parents whose kids go away to college. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I don't have to drive to soccer practice every 3 days or all this other stuff. Like, I don't know who I am anymore because I've invested so much into my children that I forgot who I was. And so, it translates there as well. It's amazing how universal this message is. And so, it's really important that who else are you? And really think about that and don't let it go. Keep it.
Well, it's when so many couples get divorced, right? Is the kids go off to school.
Ah, yeah.
And all of a sudden you look across the living room.
Right.
And you're like, oh, like, who are you?
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Because the only thing we had in common was those kids. Now they're gone. Like, what's here?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's scary how slippery of a slope it is that people just let themselves, because I mean, there's some work there and it could be daunting because it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to find. And then, your ego gets involved and it's like, you don't want to look, it's going to be ugly and scary and stupid. And it's like, your ego never tells you anything positive. It's not my friend. Like your brain is way not your friend. And it's, lead with your heart. And, especially as a leader of an organization, like bring more heart into work. Like, why not? It's forget the brain stuff. Like, who cares? We all got one, but the heart.
We talk about that a lot on the show is that I don't think anyone has a brain that says positive things to you all day, right? Where it's like,
no, never.
Oh yeah, whatever that person said, they said it from their heart. We believe that, right? It's like, that person hates us. They're wrong. We should destroy them. It's like, shut up, brain, right?
No, it's not my friend. It's not even what someone else says. It's just me to myself. Like if I talk to you the way I talk to myself, like you would get on a plane, fly to Denver, punch me in the face, get back on the plane and fly home. Like you would just be like, it's worth the $600 to come punch you. Like it's like my brain is so not nice.
But for the people that were hearing our last stretch, like one of the most important things I ever heard about relationships, and it was, my wife and I had been together 20 years before we realized this, is like, it's so powerful for you to have your passion that you follow. I have my passion, and we have like that together time. So together time, alone time, and then family time. But like making sure that you're ticking each of those 4 boxes, and you all know like, oh, your passion's running. Well, you go run. I'll stay home and do the activities. And when I'm recording a podcast, you'll do drop-offs, and just having that relationship where everybody can have their end.
Yeah. And it matters in relationships like that. It matters in work relationships just as much. I mean, like you're around the work people probably more waking hours than you are your spouse. So like, so it should matter more, I would think, but instead, it's the first thing that we personally leave outside when we walk in the office. And it's the first thing that, we don't share. If we had to share anything, it's not going to be this. And if I'm going to ask anybody about anything, it's not going to be, it's kind of like where you work, what role you have at that job, maybe where you went to school, but I don't want to creep you out too much. So, those are the kind of the levels. But at the top of that connections pyramid that I like, one of my models is, play. And play is everything you do when you're not at work. So if you can get to the top of that connections pyramid, the connections are strongest. Like, I don't care if you work for a different company or a different firm or a different department within the company. If we both love ice cream as much as I do, well, then we're best friends for no reason. Like, it doesn't even matter all the other stuff, It just supersedes all of it. And so, just bring the human out from behind the job title is really, really what it's so crucial. It sounds scary, but it's really important. It's worth it.
And so that pyramid you were talking about, we've got work, certification, education, play. What we're really focused on getting at, and I mean, this has been the whole conversation, is the play. Is it even going to Dale Carnegie's, when you think about it, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he's like, hey, find out what someone's end is. Yeah, he didn't say it this way, but find out what someone's end is and just ask them questions about that. Because and they'll love you.
Well, and you'll love them because they're so much more fun to talk to. How many times, this happens so many times where, you work somewhere, you're on a project or whatever, and then you go to a happy hour and then like the stick in the mud person shows up and is like amazingly awesome to be around. And I'm like, hey, can you bring this version of you to work on Monday? Because I've not seen this ever. And so why is it that walking into an office just turns you into a two-dimensional like droid where all of a sudden we go to a happy hour, same people, but we're in a different environment and you're alive and super fun to be around and cool stories and interesting. And it's so stupid. It's like, no, bring that person to work. Watch what happens. Magic. Like it's never been, hey, we're going to have to fire you because you have too much of a personality. Like, it's like, that's never happened. Like it's maybe at a library, but like we're not talking librarians here. Like it's maybe we could. That's the next one.
It'd be fun to see them do that.
They got to be crazy, I imagine. Like,
oh, like you're shh, like doing that all day. Like you must go crazy,
right?
Like you're not allowed to talk. Be quiet.
They probably have the loudest voices when they get a hi. It's like, why are you yelling? It's like,
I'm so quiet all day. So towards the end of the book, what you do is you do a great job of pulling out some actionable strategies for how we can implement what we've been talking about today in our workplace.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you.
And I thought what might be good is if you maybe share 2 or 3 of your favorite ones to say, hey, here's something, 2 or 3 actionable insights that people can take away and say, hey, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things. Whether it's simple example is if I know your and, when I go to give you a gift or a bonus, I'm going to tailor it to, John, you like ice cream? I'm going to find the best ice cream shop in town. Here's a gift card, go enjoy ice cream at, and you're going to be like, how did you know that store?
Right. And because a lot of organizations, for whatever reason, here's a Starbucks gift card. And it's like, well, personally, I don't drink coffee, and I'm not a big fan of their hot chocolate. That could probably be one of my ands. I'm a little bit of a hot chocolate snob. So, and yes, as a grown adult, if we're going to get quote unquote get coffee, I'm getting a hot chocolate. And so, but it's like, but if you find out someone's way into their pets or likes music or ice cream or whatever it is, like get a gift card to that. Even if it's still $25, it shows, hey, I cared enough about you to swing by there, get it, and then give it to you. That those little things matter. Another fun one for me is email signatures. There are some organizations that still have fax numbers as part of their email signature, which I think is adorable. But you can have, email signature is just, when I'm not working at XYZ company, I'm going to concerts or I'm singing or I enjoy whatever, which I think is also an important point. Is a lot of people don't want to give themselves a label. I don't want to call myself a runner because I'm not winning the New York City Marathon. Okay, well, say I enjoy running. Then no one asks you your time because it doesn't matter because you're doing it for your own enjoyment. But, in the email signature, something there. And if somebody sees it, awesome. If somebody doesn't see it, also awesome. But it's just like a little Easter egg sort of a thing that sometimes people see it and then magic happens out of that. And also too, like this one's, I think, a fun one is the Toastmasters lunches and, Toastmasters of the speaking thing. And so once a month, maybe cater lunch or not, but you have a group of people that want to work on their public speaking skills. And the topic is always your and. Because if you can't get up and talk about your and for 3 to 5 minutes, then it's not a passion of yours. And so, it's a cool way for people to be able to practice their public speaking skills, and also a really cool way for other people to get to know each other and about you. And, that's outside of work dimensions. And clients that have done that have told me just how it's increased greatly the amount of time that people are spending outside of work together. Oh, I didn't know you loved to go hiking. Let's go hiking together type of thing. Or now people are talking about it in the office, and whatever. So it's just a cool way to humanize people while also checking the box of technical skills. It's public speaking. It's, it's Toastmasters. It's whatever, counting your ahs and ums or whatever Toastmasters does. So
there is an counter. There is. Yes.
And that person should be writing tickets for canceled meters. It's like, why, what, really? That's what you want to do. But anyway.
No, they rotate at every meeting. So you all get a chance to do that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just teasing. I would be the worst at it because I would either say, you had zero. That was awesome. Or I counted 743 in 3 minutes. So we got something to work on. It's like, what? That's not even real. You're right. It's not real because who cares? That was an amazing story. I loved it. But those are some examples that people can do right away. And then if you want the other 4, it's in the book. But but there's plenty of ways that you can manifest this in your own way, not just the 7 that are in the book. I mean, there's so many different ways that clients have done this. And whatever you do, don't take the ones that we talked about and do them exactly that. Make them yours. Like, make it yours. So use these ideas. And that's what in the book, I even say, like, I hesitate to tell you how to do this because you're going to not be creative and you're going to use generic things. But that's a good start. But make it yours. Really push it and make it. I mean, there's a company here in Denver that does like corporate storage for like moving offices and like storage of stuff. And the CEO takes everyone on your anniversary month to like a really high-end shoe store and buys you a pair of nice shoes or whatever kind of shoes you want. And because he used to be into fashion. And so now he's the CEO of this company and that's his thing. And he loves taking people to go do that. And there you go. Like, and to some people, it's like, well, that's weird. And it's like, yeah, it is. And it's awesome because I remember it.
I feel like he may have a foot fetish and he's like, hey, let's go shop for shoes.
He doesn't like put them on you like Cinderella. Like he just hangs out with you and talks with you, right?
It looks at your feet.
Right? Okay, this went way too far. But anyway,
I'm just sorry, I couldn't help it.
Clint's like, do they need a CFO? Like, it's like, I feel bad for everyone listening still because they're like, this has gone sideways so many times, and it's 100% my fault. Like it's
no. So if we're a colleague, right, and we're hearing everything we're talking about, why do so many colleagues have a fear of bringing their whole self and sharing their end, and how do we help them overcome it?
Yeah, that's kind of like my lifelong goal is to figure out why. I feel like there's a myriad of reasons: self-judgment, that inner critic, the fear of people thinking that you're not dedicated to your career because you're not spending 24/7, every waking moment on work or learning about more work. And I feel like it's fear of all kinds. It's fear is why we don't. And I would say the reason why it's necessary is like the exhaustion that you described. So if people listening feel exhausted, they feel like they're masking who they really are, stop. Number one, you're killing yourself. Number two, you're not bringing all of your expertise and talents that you could bring to the job. And number three, you're completely forgettable because if you leave, they're going to bring in another CFO that can do the job just fine. But they're not going to bring in another CFO who has your personality and your quirks, if you will, that's only you. And so leave your fingerprints on your career, leave your fingerprints on the job, leave your fingerprints on the organization. Like, make a dent. I mean, the two greatest things that humans want out of life is connection and to make a difference. And not having an and, or having an and not sharing it, is 0 for 2 on creating connection and making a difference. So, I mean, what lights up your soul and what makes you come alive is important. And especially after the last 2+ years, I mean, it's super crucial.
If there's anything that taught us that, it was the last 2.5 years that we've all lived through, is that you can't lock up your true self because you never know what's about to happen.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, and it's so important to not just have ands, but to share them and create those human connections and make a difference and bring it, like, what are you doing? Bring it, make it you.
And that was such a good answer to start to wrap it up. John, is there anything that we've missed in this conversation that you want to make sure we get across to the listeners?
So much. How many more hours do we have here, Clint? No, man. I feel like we've covered a lot of it, and at least whet people's appetite anyway to want to, learn more, or, research more, or read more, and explore it, for themselves. So.
And where can people find you?
Yeah. I mean, whatsyourand.com is got everything there. And so, yeah, whatsyourand.com. The podcast is there. The book is there. I have some music video parodies that I shoot on occasion. There's a One Direction one. There's an ABBA one. There's several in there. So yeah, just when you need a quick 2.5 minute break, just jump on there and have a listen. But yeah, whatsyourand.com.
Perfect. So we'll get that in the show notes. And thank you for joining me on The Pursuit of Learning today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Clint. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on The Pursuit of Learning. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and head over to our website, thepursuitoflearning.com, where you will find our show notes, transcripts, and more. If you like what you see, sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, your host in learning, Clint Murphy.